and we'll get started. Chris Nevin, Mayor of Hampstead, and I'll serve as the MC and just make some introductions from everybody so you see who's around the room. Most people are staying for the meeting and afterward if you have additional questions, but I'm sure Sean will do a great job. From the town, I want to introduce Tammy Ledley, our town manager. She's here. Councilman Renahan's in the back, standing up. We have some Planning and Zoning Commission members here. So, Wayne Thomas just arrived, another councilman. And then we have some Planning and Zoning Commission members here. Jim Rourke in the purple shirt or purple jacket back there with Kevin Malinowski. And Clay Fisher I saw someplace in the audience as well. So, good representation. There he is. Came around the corner. This is mostly an SHA meeting, but there's a couple of folks that we should introduce. If you were here last time, some of the faces will look the same. The head guy is sitting over here, Dennis German. So Dennis is the Community Design Division Chief. Got that right? And he's been around a while in SHA, brings a lot of experience to the project. Mark Crampton is our new district engineer. I think he's technically his office is out of Frederick, but he's been with SHA for a number of years. Terry Seuss is right here. If you have questions, she'll be running around with a microphone. And then our main speaker this evening is Sean Johnson, who's the project manager. We were really glad when Sean came on board and is running with the project. I think he'll provide a lot of information tonight. And so the rest of the meeting is his, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for your time, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Sean Johnson with the Office of Community Design with the State Highway Administration. I'm also the project manager for the Hampstead Community Safety and Enhancement project. And so what I like to do is to go through the presentation of the project for all of you here, and to, at the end of the presentation, to be able to answer any questions that you may have. At the end of the meeting, our design team will be here to be able to answer any detailed questions that you may have, especially if it's questions that you have that specifically pertain to perhaps your business or your property or any other questions that you may have. So without any further ado, I want to move through the presentation and to describe to you what this is going to entail. We're going to have a brief project overview of the streetscape project. We're going to discuss some of the elements of design, discuss some key issues that the project will address, as well as to discuss the funding and the schedule. Now, hopefully everyone can see. I know, especially over here on this side. If you can't, let me know, and I'll try to adjust my position so that you can see the presentation. Now, the project location is pretty much Main Street of the town of Hampstead. The southern limits, excuse me, the southern limits at Northwoods Trail, and we'll proceed north all the way up to the CSX Railroad crossing. So that's the whole project limits for this project. And what the project is going to entail is, in fact, impacting Maryland 30 business. As you know, Maryland 30 business is an undivided two-lane urban minor arterial, and its width is 11 to 12-foot lanes with parking lanes as well as shoulders, which vary in width throughout the project limits. And currently, the speed limit is 40 miles per hour. 30? Okay. 30. What the project hopes to accomplish is to rehabilitate the roadway, as well as to provide Americans with Disabilities Act compliant sidewalks and sidewalk ramps. We like to call it ADA compliance, and ADA means that we want to try to achieve a width of 5 feet for the width of project throughout the town limits. Also, we'll be looking to improve the curb and gutter, as well as the driveway entrances, crosswalks, and pedestrian signals throughout the project. We're also going to be looking to address drainage concerns, upgrade the drainage system, and to provide new stormwater management facilities as it relates to the project. Now, if you had an opportunity before the meeting started to look at the boards, what we're showing here is the typical section of existing Maryland 30, and then what we're proposing to build and construct with the project. the width of the road is still going to remain in its current configuration. It's still going to be 66 feet, which means two 11-foot lanes, 8-foot shoulders or parking areas. But what we're going to be providing with the project is the sidewalks, and that's going to be the key to the project. Providing a network of sidewalk from one end of the town to the other in order to improve the pedestrian safety throughout the area and environment and make it a more walkable community. And here is a typical section of Maryland 30 at the intersections. And so not much has changed as far as width is concerned, but you notice that we are proposing to install the sidewalks even at the intersection. So that's going to provide another level of safety throughout the project. Now, these are overviews of the plans which are in the back for your view. It just shows what we're looking to propose. You may not be able to see it with any detail from this PowerPoint presentation, but we are looking to install sidewalk as well as to resurface the entire roadway, to restripe the entire roadway, as well as to also add pedestrian amenities, which we'll get into as we move forward with the project. Now, some of the elements of the design, as I mentioned, are pedestrian improvements, intersection and roadway improvements, drainage improvements, and landscaping and aesthetic improvements, which we'll explain as we get further into the presentation. Now, the current situation throughout the town of Hampstead is that there is really no continuous network of sidewalk. It varies from parts of town where you may have the businesses, which right off the end of the buildings, it just goes into the roadway. There may be a lot of commercial parking and activity adjacent to those businesses, but there's no safe pedestrian environment. Or, as it shows here on the photo to the right, where you have some residential areas where there is no sidewalk. So you, as a resident living along Main Street, you really don't have an option of walking safely out of your home. You have to either walk along the shoulder at the risk of your safety, or get in your car and go where you want to go. So these are things that we want to try to correct with this project, to provide connectivity from one end of the town to the other, to construct a ADA-compliant sidewalk, as well as to try to accomplish maintaining and improving the existing sidewalk, which is out here. Now, one of the key issues, and I know I've talked with a couple of you today about what we're looking to do with some of the sidewalk throughout the project. Basically, we will be installing concrete sidewalk. But then there are going to be areas where we're looking to see if we can install pervious concrete sidewalk. Now, what that is a material which allows water to flow through the sidewalk in order to accomplish stormwater management quality, to accomplish quality for stormwater management, basically. One of the challenges that we have on this project is that we're required on all SHA construction projects by MDE to manage our runoff. Now, one of the challenges on this project is there really are very few locations that we can accomplish that. So one of the things that we're looking to do in order to try to get MDE's approval on that would be the use of pervious sidewalk. Now, that is not something that we're going to be utilizing throughout the entire project, but only in certain areas. Now, I know that some of the residents have asked the question about the maintenance of it, and it does require maintenance in order for it to function properly. Basically, what we would have to do is to keep it unclogged, which means you would have to vacuum it, and you would have to keep it operating in a functional manner in order for it to function the way it's constructed. So that is a concern that some residents have had, because the next question is, well, who's going to maintain that? And that would be the responsibility of the town in order to maintain it. But those are issues that we're going to continue to work through with the town, as well as to try to address any concerns that you as residents have about this alternative that we want to recommend. Another element of the project is to improve the pedestrian movements throughout town. Now, what we're showing here is, we want to highlight the crosswalk movements at various intersections throughout town. One concern that some residents may have is, will they be able to cross at certain intersections safely? And so what this project is proposing to accomplish is to provide crossing areas which are highlighted and delineated so that motorists as well as pedestrians can identify where they should be and where motorists can watch for pedestrians as they move through town. And this is another example of what we've done in other areas where we want to increase the visibility of the movements for pedestrians. So that's something that we will be accomplishing with this project as we address the intersections and the crossing areas in order to provide a safer movement for pedestrians. Along with that, we're going to be looking to improve the pedestrian as well as traffic amenities at the intersections. One way in which we'll accomplish that is by installing audio pedestrian signals at the location, so they will make a noise to alert motorists as well as to alert pedestrians that there's going to be pedestrians crossing, as well as countdown signals in order to give an indication to pedestrians how much time they have to cross the roadway. So you may have seen some of these if you go into some of the more urban areas or the metropolitan areas in Baltimore, other places where the signals have a countdown timer. Those are things that are going to be installed and utilized through this project as well. As also we will be looking to improve the signage throughout the town area. We will be looking to resurface and restripe the entire roadway. So at the completion of this project, you will have a brand new and nice and attractive roadway from one end of town to the other. And also, we're going to be looking to improve the drainage. That is a concern with State Highway in general, is how do you improve the runoff of the road and to minimize any type of drainage issues on the roadway. And we know that with the profile of the road, where you may have hills and valleys, you may have areas where the water may pond, and it can cause a concern during very strong storm events. So the project will be looking to upgrade the drainage system as well as to construct stormwater management facilities related to the project. And another feature of the project, another element of the project that we'll be looking to accomplish will be landscaping and beautification. Now, we have some displays which show some options or alternatives that could be utilized through town as far as vegetation, tree species, shrubbery, things of that sort in order to beautify the project limits, as well as there are a number of retaining walls, and in front of or adjacent to certain homes, they may have some small retaining walls as well. Well, we're going to be looking, as we look to reconstruct the sidewalks, we no doubt will be impacting some of those walls. So what we want to do is work with the residents, the property owners, where we may want to suggest or get some input as to how would we rebuild those walls, what kind of materials would we want to use, because in order to accomplish reconstructing the sidewalk throughout the area, these are impacts that may be unavoidable. In some areas, the walls are in varying conditions, some where the walls may be leaning and have been poorly maintained, or they just are very old. So what we want to do is to address that throughout the project, to try to rebuild those retaining walls, as well as to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And so to get into the nuts and bolts of the project, of the funding, as well as the schedule. Now, this project is fully funded for engineering as well as construction. So right now, we're at the 95% design phase. Now, if many of you may have been here earlier, a number of years ago, I think maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, where we came to the town and presented the basic idea for the project, that was probably around 30%. We're at 95%. So what you're going to be seeing in the displays are designs which are more detailed, more refined. They show some placements of some recommended placements for pedestrian lighting, as well as for landscaping in some of the areas. And so it's a lot more detail what you're going to see tonight as opposed to what you may have seen in the past. but we're nearing the completion of our preliminary engineering, and the project is funded for construction. So it's not a matter of we're going to complete design and then we're going to wait for any funding. As soon as we're finished with design, we're going to move into that construction stage. But the schedule, as I'm showing up here, before we get into the construction of the roadway project, as you may have seen in these displays over here, the town is proposing to upgrade the water system throughout town. So before we start with our project, the town is going to begin the construction and upgrading of the water line, as well as Carroll County is going to be upgrading some of their sewer ahead of the state highway project. So as I'm showing here on the schedule, the town's project will look to begin construction in the spring of 2015, and they have a year time frame in which they're going to do their work and hopefully complete by 2016. Now, I don't know if Tammy Letley is the town manager, and she may have any details regarding that project, and then Lisa Frank is also the project manager for the waterline project, so any questions that you may have or any details you wish to know about the waterline project, they will be in a position to answer those questions for you. But the objective is for the town to construct their waterline work first ahead of the state roadway project. And then we'll be looking to complete our engineering in the fall of 2015, and then look to advertise for construction our project in the spring of 2016. So immediately after the conclusion of the water line and sewer line work, State Highway will be coming right behind it with the beginning of construction for the roadway work. Now, the duration of the project for the state roadway project is approximately 3 years. So when you look at all of this in total, you'll be looking at possibly a 4-year duration of construction activities for the town of Hampstead, beginning with the waterline project and then continuing with the roadway project. So I know that that's going to be a lot of disruption that the town will have to endure, but hopefully the objective is to have a much better and more improved roadway and pedestrian environment for the town of Hampstead. And so, in a nutshell, that is the project. As I mentioned, we have the display boards showing the roadway project as well as the drainage project that the town is proposing, and we also have some display boards for landscaping options that can be utilized throughout town. But at this time, if any of you have questions, we would like to address some of those. Ma'am, we have a microphone, so if you want to wait for the microphone, please.
This road right out here, Upper Beckleysville Road, has a big dip right where it meets Route 30. Is anything going to be done to make that easier to maneuver by bigger vehicles or even our cars who bottom out?
That was something that was discussed with some of our design team, and I think specifically we were looking at sight distance, because as you pull to the intersection, you pull to Maryland 30, it may be difficult to see past that high wall that's over here. So we're going to look at that and see if we can improve that sight distance issue to make it more pleasing and more visible for motorists. As far as the dip that you're talking about, we can look into that. At this point, I don't think we had looked at it in much detail because it is a side street, and we were focusing more on the pedestrian movement as opposed to that geometric concern that you're referring to. But we can definitely look into that. If you can wait for the microphone. Thank you.
For me, it's harder to see when I'm coming down north because trucks, like a couple of pickup trucks, tend to park there. So the wall isn't the south view isn't as difficult for me as the north view. But recently I've had a I've been disabled, so I've had a limo take me around, and he said limousines don't even go that way, and some school buses, because that dip is so bad about bottoming out with long vehicles. And even my husband's car does, so I think it's a concern.
Well, I know with the project, I know there are other, like you said, with school buses or other commercial vehicles, they probably will use more of the larger, the more established roads in order to navigate throughout town, and streets like this may be more local in nature. And so it may just have localized traffic that use Upper Beckley's Road and so forth. But that's not to preclude us looking at that and seeing if it's something that we can address with this project. Yes, sir?
Hello? Sorry. Upper Beckleysville Road is used by the fire department on a regular basis for east-west traffic. It's the only one that's actually really plowed at the wintertime for traffic going eastward towards Beckleysville. I think the town, as well as the state highway, should look at it. Secondly, you're actually in schematic design then, rather than CDs or DDs?
CEs, I'm not.
Schematic design rather than design development, rather than contract documents.
Yes, we probably use a different term, but yeah, we're in the.
Those are DGS terms.
Yes, well, we may not use that term as schematic, but this isn't concept design. We are in final design, and as you see here, for example, if these are actual design plans, we do have design plans for our project. We are moving toward developing contract documents and developing our estimates and so forth. So we are pretty far along in the development of the planning, the design documents for this project.
The plant material, how's that being selected? I see that you have some options over there. Most of them, about 20% of them are dirty trees, high maintenance, need to be pruned, break off easily in snowstorms.
Well, I think as you notice, we're showing proposed landscaping throughout town. Those are just options. I mean, those options can change. Definitely, if there are species of trees that maybe residents would prefer not to see, that might be something you may want to communicate with the town manager and with the mayor, and they can in turn direct that information to us. But we're just showing options of native species that would be utilized in this area, which would be hardy and would be able to deal with the changing in the temperatures and may also be durable during winters. And then, one option is to look at, how will these different species, varieties beautify the town? So there are a lot of different options that we have. These are just some options that we're just prefer. Yes. Yeah, Jeff Landerfeld and Jeff Stump, they're our landscape architects.
I'd like to have discussions, but I also want, because we're in the North Carroll Hereford school zone, totally different climatic conditions here.
Right.
Everything to the south of us is one thing. Where this is it. Mm-hmm. We get the storms from Pennsylvania.
Right. They're the experts.
I'll speak with them also.
Yes, yes. Yes, you can. I meant to mention that. At the end of the meeting, if you do have any questions or comments that you wish to relate to us, we have back here some comment forms for you to fill out. And then you can drop those in the box for us, and we'll be certain to address those and get back to you on that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, you mentioned ponding, where the drainage system's inadequate. Why, with this type project, with what's going on, why aren't you on board with the Exxon station at South Main Street, where they just did a major construction, replaced the tanks or did something down there, and still unresolved after years of complaint is this ponding right from Route 30 into those pumps. It freezes over. We're just waiting for an accident to happen. We've complained about this in the past, and then they just allowed a landscaping issue to go unresolved, and you replaced allowed the town to replace the pumps or do whatever, and we still have a ponding issue right in the going into the middle of winter here. So that needs to be addressed. It should be addressed right now, and shouldn't be waiting 2, 3, 4 years to resolve it, if it's going to be resolved at all. And
well,
this was brought up at your initial meetings.
I think, well, I know what we just finished completing, what we just finished construction work was an advanced drainage project. Oh, further up. Okay, all right. Well, we could look into that, sir. Me coming on, I'm not specifically aware of that issue, but typically when, you know, the work being done by gas stations may not necessarily be something that we may partner with because their needs are specific and different. But we do try to coordinate best we can with our project, but I think that might be a question that we can probably address in more detail after the meeting. Well, as I mentioned, the project schedule is such that we're going to be addressing that as soon as we can. Right now, the upgrade to the water and sewer line is a crucial project that needs to take place first. And then once that project is complete, we're going to be coming behind with our project, and we will be looking at and addressing a lot of those drainage concerns. Well, we can. What I can do is maybe that'd be something that maybe from a maintenance perspective we can look at. That maybe addressing something that's more immediate now. Our district engineer is here, and he definitely can bring that up to his staff, and maybe their maintenance crews can come out and look and see if there's something that can be done on a more immediate basis. But then we'll be coming back with our project in the near future, looking to improve the whole drainage system throughout the project and make it a much better system than what it is today. We'll duly noted, and we'll definitely look into that, sir. Yes, ma'am?
And I'm realizing how important it is to watch out for these gas pumps. There's a lot of people that live on wells. And I know from my sister who lives in Jacksonville that there was a problem with gasoline pumps that had infected their wells.
Mm-hmm.
So please take this seriously and pay attention to what he's saying, because apparently this has happened and it has been known. And I live a little bit further down from Main Street, but I am on a well and I'm concerned.
We'll definitely keep that in mind, ma'am. Yes, sir?
I know this may not come under state highway,
If you can,
but I understand there's stuff, I'm sure Mike can relate.
Well, the cameras are...
I don't think this comes under state highway, and I understand we're not going to be seeing underground wiring when we redo the town. But is there any plans maybe in conjunction with BDGE to straighten out some of these poles and things through the town? Some of them look like spaghetti. They've been there for years and years, and they're going to be unsightly looking at this with a revised town.
we have been working closely with all the utility companies, with BG&E, both overhead and underground with their gas, with Verizon, and with some of the other smaller utilities that are on the poles. And what we're doing with this project, what BG&E and the utility companies are looking to do, there are very few poles in the town that we're going to be relocating. Mainly what BG&E will be doing is refreshing those poles. It's very difficult and very expensive and costly to do what you're talking about. Ideally, you would want to do that, but in order to try to control costs with the project and to be able to maintain the schedule that we're proposing, we've asked BG&E to relocate just certain poles that were impacting or conflicting with our proposed storm drain design, as well as with relocations for BG&E underground. And they're going to be renewing existing poles or putting in new poles to replace some of the older ones. But as far as changing the alignment or undergrounding, that was a cost or a feature that we're not going to be able to address on this project. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, I'm not sure I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm listening to this gentleman. Is the renovation of Main Street, is this the time to have the cables buried, the electric cables, the voice over internet, Comcast? Is this the time to do it for the beautification of Main Street? Like I said, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems a good time to do it.
I'm gonna let Mr. German address it, but typically that is a very costly.
This question comes up quite a bit about underground utilities, and it would seem the opportunity to do so, but we won't pay for it. Obviously, it's not something that's our responsibility, and this is a cost that we have to do sort of by BGE. Well, BGE or Verizon, or whoever your power company or your communication company is, they're going to spread that cost somewhere. Somebody's going to pay for that, and it's extremely expensive. I've done work in Baltimore City where they do have underground utilities, and you're talking cost to move lines 7 to 8 to 9 to 12 times as high as moving utilities that are underground, overhead. It's a very expensive proposition. And it's not just moving the lines, it's building underground environmental storage facilities or transformers they put in. It's very costly. So that's why we're not in that business, because we won't absorb that cost.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'd like to back the tree issue just a little bit. You know, we have a great big facility in the south end of town, distribution center, that Callan trucks a lot of trucks out of. And when you talk about trees along streets, and all you got to do is go in some of the developments down here in Hampstead Valley. I drive the fire trucks here all the time. We come up the intersection, we can't see in either way because you plant low blooming and spread out trees. Any trees on Main Street shouldn't spread out till they're at least 14 foot in the air, because you got the mirrors on the trucks and everything else, and you're trying to visualize people. You come down the intersection and you cannot see. And I know it beautifies the town and everybody likes those low-hanging trees, but you talk about safety, and the guys that truck, and trucking is going to do nothing but increase in the next few years because railroad can't handle our freight. So you're going to see, you see 100 and some trucks go up and down here through town every day. And I think that's something, as you plant things along the roadway, not only the maintenance, but the clearances for us and even our fire trucks getting around town, that needs to be clearly addressed.
We definitely could take that into consideration. Our landscape architects can look into those issues and make sure that whatever we do propose will not create a safety issue. But we try to work to beautify the town, but at the same time, we don't typically plant something that's going to create a sight distance issue or to make an existing situation worse. So. Duly noted, sir. Duly noted. Yes, sir.
Scheduling. Is it the plan to disrupt North Main Street to South Main Street at one time with a water project, or are you going to do it in segments?
Or to Lisa. 6 phases, starting at the north, rolling down to the south, and the project's supposed to take a year. So it's not the plan to disrupt the whole thing.
Same, along with that, when the SHA, as far as the SHA work is concerned, are you planning on doing a block at a time or Beirut?
We're going to be looking to progressively construct from one end to the other. What we're still working out the details on how we're going to construct, because we do have to coordinate and try to coordinate with the town's project. They're going to be ahead of us, and so we want to make sure that they're out of our way before we get in there. And then also there's going to be some utility relocation work that's going to be taking place as well. So we're not going to come in and just disrupt a large portion of the town with with construction activities. It'll be a progressive movement from one end of the town to the other. And then, once we do have a contractor on board, he may be able to offer some other suggestions in which we can possibly utilize. But we're not going to, the objective is not to just disrupt the whole limit of the project at one time.
Any additional development on Main Street, I guess this is for the town, will the beautification process be taken into consideration as new construction happens? For instance, Iliano 2, were they considered exempt from including sidewalks, or because of the SHA work?
That was actually a decision that State Highway had to ask them not to construct the sidewalk that they were proposing, because what they were proposing was not going to be compatible with what we were proposing. And so we worked with the town as well as through our access management office to go back to that developer and say, do not construct the sidewalk that you're proposing. So in fact, we will come back and we're going to construct the sidewalk in front of that development so it's compatible with the project. They had a different location and where they wanted to place sidewalk. And what happened is if they were to build their sidewalk, we would have to come back and tear it back up. So the better option is to have them not construct that sidewalk so that we can come in and construct it and be compatible with our project. Yes, sir?
Do you have an idea or an average as to how much you're going to be milling the main road off to be able to construct these sidewalks with a sufficient amount of curbing to keep the vehicles from driving up over top of them?
Well, the curb height that we're proposing is going to be a 12-inch curb. So with that in mind, we do have details in the plans which will show how much we may have to mill off the road in order to bring it back up, and then the curb height will also dictate how we're going to tie back in with the sidewalks. So those are details that we could perhaps talk with the design engineer about, but we do have that information. We could definitely relay that to you after the meeting. Yes, sir?
What time does your workday begin and what time does your workday end?
That typically our workday is from 7, or from about 8 to 3. 9, from 9 to 3. Now we are in discussions with the town because they would like to see the project proceed a little bit quicker, and they've asked State Highway to see if we can make some adjustments in that. So we haven't worked through those details, but typically it is from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, which is our typical.
So we're not going to have evening work hours?
Right now, we're not proposing any evening work hours.
Okay, we've encountered that before. Just it's still residential and as well as mixed business in some cases.
Right. Right now, we're not proposing any work after 3. However, if that's something that you wish to communicate to the town, I would suggest that you do so, because I know that the one thing that we don't want to do is to disrupt the town for a long period of time. Sometimes the alternative may be to increase the construction activities for longer periods of time in order to accomplish that. But we're not proposing that right now. And one thing that I failed to mention in the presentation that I'll bring up now is that we will be coming back, State Highway will be coming back once we do get into that construction phase in order to talk about the construction details of the project with the community again. So details as to time of construction activities, how the construction will be phased throughout the project limits will be discussed, impacts to businesses or homes, how will access be addressed, things of that sort. So we will come back to the town again, and I think a detail like that you're asking we'll address.
In the past, we've had, it's Main Street, it's Route 30, and it's Hanover Pike. What is it going to be now? Is it Main Street, since the town will take over the ownership? And so we finally get to control speed limits, and how do we do, get everything back in line again?
Yes, Charles, it's going to be our street, Main Street, north and south, and we'll have total control.
Okay, right now, what I kind of see is the bypass not being used a lot by local tractor and trailers, that they seem to take the Main Street route, which wears down our Main Street, et cetera. And also, I'm going to say, I may be wrong here, but since the annexation from our gas bill years ago, I don't think the town limits have ever been recognized with the right speed limits in the Black & Decker, Roberts Field area. And a lot of people fly up through there. Everything should be 30 mile an hour or whatever we have standard all the way through. And maybe we could work on Cowan trucking or something to, say, use the bypasses instead of vibrating the houses to, et cetera.
So noted. You were talking about underground lines and overhead lines. There's ways to adjust the height of them to minimize the visual impact of them. We've talked to Mike Fowler from BG&E about removing some of the spaghetti, which ones are actually active and which ones are dead, and taking care of that during this process as well. So we're all good suggestions, but we're not leaving any stone unturned.
Charles, I'm working with you. Is it possible to have signs, no trucks over 2 tons or something like that, to force trucks to use Route 482? Is that a possibility? Or 18-wheelers, yeah, 18-wheelers. Is that a possibility?
I'm not sure if it is or not, because you got 482 on one corner and you've got going over to Route 88, which are state highways, on another. So I'm not sure how much access you can deny, but to the extent they're coming through town, we make it clear that they should be out using the bypass. I know a couple years ago, all the Utz trucks were coming down through Main Street. It was a simple phone call, and now they're on the bypass.
Also working with Charles, I believe the construction between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Route 30 is important because of traffic. If Hampstead is going to be backed up, it's going to be backed up all the way down to 795. So I think that's important, what time the construction begins and ends for commuters.
It's a balancing issue. 9 to 3 means 2.5, 3 years. 7 to 5 means maybe 2 years. So it's a balancing issue for how long and the duration of the disturbance is, and it's a balancing issue for the businesses to get this thing up and running as fast as possible with as minimal impact over the long term to people who live and do business on Main Street. So it's all under discussion.
Okay, I would like minimal impact because I live on Hauksville Road, and I don't want Hauksville Road being a highway for 4 years while things are detoured maybe around town. Okay?
Noted.
So you keep that in mind? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
As a safety issue, I wanted to know if the 12-inch curbs and the new pedestrian crosswalks is going to prohibit any way of people breaking the law and passing on the right in the intersections.
Well, hopefully with the improvements, we're looking to improve the pedestrian environment. We're not changing the width of the roadway by reducing it or by widening it. Now, what we're doing is more clearly defining it in areas where no curb or no sidewalk exists today. So a lot of those issues that you're talking about, there's only so much we can do with design. A lot of it becomes an enforcement issue. And therefore, the law enforcement in town would have to work to try to reinforce some of those rules with motorists.
Well, they tell me that it's a moot issue, that they can't enforce that law. I noticed the sign that you had for the pedestrian crosswalks. Could
Yes.
that include a sign that says no passing on right
I
on
think,
the
we'll-
intersection?
We'll have to discuss that with our traffic engineers as to what signs we're required to place up there. Now, of course,
Because it's really a hazard.
right, now, of
For
course,
both pedestrians and auto traffic.
right, now, of course, once the roadway is turned over to the town, now, the town may opt to do things of that sort that you're discussing. I can't speak to that because I'm not a traffic engineer. I do know we do have representation from our traffic office here. If you may want to address that question with them, they can. April Stitt is from our Office of Traffic in Frederick. Should be able to address that question
Thank
for
you.
you. You're welcome.
I'm really shy, but this lady has me thinking of what I'm seeing on top of Hauksville Road. They're going to put in a right turn lane, it looks like. Why would they want to do that? Especially when we're talking about the right lanes and safety and, yeah, exactly. I don't think that was a good idea to put that to create a right-hand, you see what I'm saying? What's the safety? No turn on red. And I'm glad to see there's no circles in the town, right?
No, there are no traffic circles in town.
But consider that the right-hand turn you want to make on Hauksville Road. Right turn on red. How safe is that for these new intersections you're proposing?
We can.
Pedestrian sections.
I know our design engineer back there may be able to address that question with you. If you would like, maybe after the meeting, that could be something that could be specifically addressed. But we're looking to improve and to make the pedestrian movements better, and as well as to make the operational movements for vehicles better. So maybe we can discuss that after the meeting. Yes, ma'am?
With the drainage issues, there's going to be storm management drainage. Is that going to be a pond, or is that going to be more of a swamp land kind of thing?
We're looking at locations either within the project limits or close by in order for us to be able to accomplish that. We're very limited as to what we can do within the project limits because it is such an urban area. So to do stormwater management, which we would like to do, or which we typically do, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to do it here. So we're looking at other areas in order to see what we can do, which MDE will provide us with approval for. So we're looking at areas north of town. We're looking at areas along Maryland 88 to see what kind of what areas may be available to us that we can investigate, and then see what MDE will say we're okay with doing.
In general terms, excuse me, but what you're looking at is not these big holes in the ground you used to see, it's more like swales. And we try to do it in areas where the soil is more permeable, or where it can take more quickly and easily and cleanse more easily. So, and that's the trick to doing that.
So it wouldn't be standing water?
It's not intentional.
No.
So it's not retention ponds. These are
No.
infiltration basins.
Okay.
Are you also eliminating all the mailboxes along Main Street?
We're going to be working with the post office in talking about that. I know that that's going to be a matter in which where do we replace and move the mailboxes. So we're in discussions with the post office and looking at what options or alternatives we can utilize on this project. We're in that final phase, and from this meeting forward, we're going to be having monthly meetings as a design team, as well as with the town. And so, hopefully, within the next year, we should know that. We've only broached that subject with the post office, so we have yet to work through those details and then come back with a solution that we're going to incorporate into the project.
All right, I think the SHA staff's going to stick around for a little bit. Oh, Mr. Rill, you got a question? Just keep talking, it'll catch up.
Okay. I've owned a business on Main Street for 18 years, and I know with the bypass, 90% of the truck traffic is off of Main Street. You're always going to have some for deliveries to the businesses, so there's no way to avoid that. But again, I know 90% is off of Main Street. Secondly, as far as the working hours, speaking as a business owner, the sooner the project's done, the better. If you work 6 hours a day, even when they're not working, it's going to be disruptive to Main Street. An 8-hour day means it gets done quicker, and I, for one, just think that would be a better way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. You can catch up with everybody afterward.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on his comment. I'm all for an 8-hour day.
Okay.
But when you had Lockheed Martin doing the synchronizing, let's say, the traffic signals and running all the way, a line all the way up Main Street, we had to stop construction way into the hours close to 11, 12 o'clock at night. That was what prompted my question about your decent and hours. 9 to 5, I'm all for that, or 9 to 6, or whatever you need to do, but not
Not until 11 o'clock at night.
not before 7 and not after 10 o'clock at night.
Works for me. All right, like I said, SHA staff will be around here afterward. I think that a lot of good information was shared today. I thank you all for coming. A lot of good, excuse me, good long-term relationships that we have with the SHA staff. In the back of the room, Dave Coyne, who's the director of operations, he used to be the district engineer for us, but now he's the big boss, and he's been around since the bypass days. So a lot of good people working on this project. And as you have questions, feel free to email Town Hall, call Tammy. We're more than glad to share this information, and I think there'll be another one of these as we get closer to actually breaking ground. So thank you, and a round of applause for Sean.